Good afternoon. It's John's D&D vlog number 12. So today I was going to be talking about a referee I used to have, a dungeon master I used to have. His name was Fred Funk. Just before I graduated from high school back in about 1984, right? So one of my friends got me into a D&D game with this guy, and I had played some D&D up until then. I'd been in a few groups, and it was just a bunch of kids sitting around a table who didn't really know what they were doing, and we had fun, but it was pretty normal stuff. And then when I joined up with this guy's game, he showed me what D&D could really be like. He was just a super nice guy, and I know it's kind of weird to kind of make a whole episode of my blog about him, but honestly speaking, from my particular standpoint, the way I see it is like this. Like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and Ayn Rand, they wrote some really interesting things, and because they found their audience and because they found publishers willing to publish their books, not only did they get to create all their lives, but they got to make some money too. So when you think about Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, Ayn Rand, and all the rest of them, yeah, they're good writers, but honestly speaking, they're also very lucky, because not only did they get to spend their lives creating, they also got to get paid for it. But then there's people who never got paid for it, who are equally as talented, that we just never found out about it. And Fred Funk was one of them. You have to understand something. When I watch the Lord of the Rings videos, it's fun, it's entertaining. When I read the books, it's fun, it's entertaining. But I had more fun in this guy's games than what I ever got out of Tolkien's books. There's not many. I guess you have to realize the way I'm looking at it, though. It was my character in his story, so everything that was happening to me, so that automatically made it more exciting. Honestly speaking, even after saying all that, I think about it really hard, and I don't know who's better. I don't know who's better. Was Fred Funk better or was Tolkien better? And I don't know. It's possible Fred Funk was better. And that's going to make a lot of people roll their eyes, but you have to realize you weren't there and you didn't see the kind of fiction this guy was capable of creating. So I keep talking about him on my blogs because he was really good at it, you know? And honestly speaking, after a guy invests so much time and energy with his life entertaining people, and he entertained a lot of people, hundreds if not, probably in the hundreds, not in the thousands. He had been gaming since 1968, and I don't know how much of that time he spent as referee, as dungeon master, but he made a lot of people happy. And anyway, I just wanted to show you what he was like, what his world was like, talk a little bit about him. Think of this as like the biography of Tolkien that you saw in the Lord of the Rings DVD set that came out that Peter Jackson made. So, I never really got to know him very well. I found out more about him once he died, and then a friend of mine let me have copies of, files of all these scans that he had made. But he had once been a police officer, and according to another article that I had read, he got a master's degree in criminology from the University of Minnesota. He was always poor, he was never married. But you got to realize what this guy did. He was just a very, very intriguing author. If Fred had stumbled into a different way of making a living, he might have made a lot of money. I saw the movie Moneyball not too long ago, and basically the whole movie was about a guy who stumbled on this system of creating the perfect sports team, right? And you do it by analyzing all the statistics. And then the guy used that system that he found and turned one particular sports franchise into the championship team of that particular year, right? The thing is, the guy who actually invented the system that Brad Pitt used in that movie was a security guard working in some building, and he would work on it at nights. And this is what Fred did too. He was a security guard, and he would spend his nights working on stuff like this, and then he'd play the games on the weekends or whenever he got to play, and he would make a lot of people really happy. So I met Fred last year at high school, as I said, and the first time I met him, well, I was a new player in his game, and I remember I went to some guy's house, and there was a whole bunch of people sitting around, and we were rolling up characters, and Fred, he's just this big guy. He was like 6'4", 6'5", and he wasn't just fat, he was big and strong looking too, but he was sitting around joking with people about a really weird, crazy thing. He was talking to my friend, and he was saying, I wonder how much botulism we would have to put into the Twin Cities water supply in order to kill everybody. And I'm thinking, what in the world am I doing in this room with these people? And I'm wondering, am I going to die anytime soon? Are these guys going to go wacko and kill me? So the first thing I'm thinking after I meet Fred is, oh boy, I'm in trouble, and I'm looking forward to the time that I get to leave. Because when you meet this guy, he just looked weird. And I don't mean that in a terrible way. I mean, he was just big, and he had these big machine shop glasses, and he had this big, strong way about talking, and he had a lot of charisma to him. But then he would start speaking kind of oddly. The way he said hi to people was greetings and salutations. Who says that? Fred did. It was just his personality. Over the years, I got to know the guy a little bit better. I guess not years. I only knew him for a couple of years. But that was just his way. You got to realize he wasn't just a normal guy. He wasn't just a gamer. He is an author. I mean, he was writing stories for people to get into and get around. And I mean, I'm sure Tolkien creeped a few people out when he was talking about, how Gollum would prefer to eat a hobbit over an orc, because orcs didn't taste very good. I'm sure as Tolkien went through when he was telling his stories to people, you have to go into the same amount of detail as Tolkien would have to go into to write them. I'm sure more than once he probably creeped out some people. So anyway, Fred didn't leave a great first impression, but it sure was a memorable one. And then I just kept playing. It wears off. I mean, you get into it. You really enjoyed the game. And anyway, it was a lot of fun. It really was a lot of fun. I'm going to just keep talking, but as I'm talking, I'm going to show you these illustrations from Fred's game. They were commissioned from some artist. I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but these are all the different characters that you can meet up with in Fred's world. And you have to realize that each one of these characters, it's not just a doodle on a piece of paper. I mean, these guys were actual characters. They were fleshed out. Fred probably knew all their characteristics. He probably had, the PCs had probably interacted with these characters over and over again over the space of maybe, 30 years? So just realize these are parts to his story. It's not just sketches. They're actual important aspects of his story. You didn't have access to all these illustrations when I was in the game. We were doing everything more or less just verbally. It was just talking. We didn't even use miniatures. This is a news story that came out about a gaming convention that happened in the Twin Cities, I'm guessing in the late 1980s. And I was just going to read it because it's pretty interesting. They wrote a story, and the whole thing was half about Fred and Fred's world. You have to realize back then, Dungeons & Dragons was probably a lot more popular in the world than it is right now. I mean, they say D&D is having a rebirth, but this was back in the big days of D&D. So I'm just going to read the story and show you some of the art in Fred's world as I do this. Here we go. So Fred Funk displayed the game setting he invented, Fred's World, to enthusiastic participants of the Yukon 5 game convention held this week in Kaufman Union. Said Fred of Fred's World, "If you can conceive it, you can have it," by Meg Spilleth, staff writer. There were medieval battles and naval battles, fighting dragons and menacing werewolves, grown men hunched over tables filled with toys, plotting out the moves of armies or debating the merits of respective dungeons. It was fantasy, all right, a convention of fantasy for people in various stages of escapism. Yukon 5, as the gaming convention is known to Twin Cities gamers, took over Kaufman Memorial Union during the weekend. Men, primarily, gathered in conference rooms to work their way through mythical landscapes. Most of the warriors, gladiators, dwarves, and wizards seemed to be living on mellow yellow and cigarettes. Kaufman's Great Hall was surprisingly quiet for a battleground. Doreen Thornley, the chairfool of the event, became involved in gaming through her husband's interest. There are very few women playing war games, and she isn't sure why. War's a male thing, she said, and left it at that. For the most part, she said, gamers are mathematicians or computer programmers, analytical types. There are also many historians. They spend hours each week gaming, or plotting scenarios for games. Most of them have been at it since the age of 12 or 13. Everyone was talking about Fred's World, talking so enthusiastically that it seemed to be quite real, as though the next train were leaving in a minute or two. Fred is a real person, a very large and charismatic person. He carries a world of 10 continents and 400 large cities in his head. It is a most accommodating world, borrowed freely from books and movies and whatever Fred thinks up next. In my world, if you can conceive of it, you can have it, he says. Fred is Fred Funk, and his experience with role-playing games goes back to its origins. Dungeons & Dragons, the first and most famous fantasy role-playing game, was invented by Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax in 1968 at St. Thomas Academy, now the College of St. Thomas in St. Paul. Fred was one of the original 7 playtesters for the prototype of the game. There isn't much of a living to be made in fantasy gaming, however, so Fred earned a master's degree in criminology at the university in 1972 and has worked in law enforcement while creating Fred's World. Although he has printed materials and maps for Fred's World and has a copyright on much of the material, he has no intention of ever publishing it. Too big and too plagiarized. There are elements of Star Wars, The Wizard of Oz, and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, to name a few. My world exists to create fun and make people happy, he said. Gamers are not crazed idiots with Vegematics, though some of them are. I let people have fun when they play. If they want to do Monty Python or Wit and Wisdom or Hack and Slash, I let them. His philosophy towards proposals and ideas from gamers is TIAFO. Try it and find out. To play in Fred's World, the assembled gamers agree. You have to have imagination, creativity, and a sense of humor. And you have to love big dogs. Big dogs. I had a dog named Gulliver when I was growing up, Fred explained. Half collie and half German shepherd. He got run over by a milk truck, so I put him in my world. The boss of Fred's World is named Ethelbert, and Gulliver is his big brown furry Roo dog. Gamers in Fred's World want to stay on good terms with Ethelbert, as there is a 267-level dungeon awaiting those who don't like dogs. In addition, gamers are seeking 2 hidden spaceships that will take them into an intergalactic dimension of Fred's World. There they will meet Gullivernians, humanoid German shepherds that are taking up the canine burden of bringing peace to the world, Fred explained. Even Peter Pan had to grow up, though, and Fred claims to keep one foot securely in the world of taxes, homework, and carburetor trouble. Reality must always supplant fantasy, he said. One has to live in the real world, wherever that may be. You get into this world and everything is just so interesting and intricate and detailed, and you get a little bit lost in it. So I started getting into it too. So I spent a lot of my time when I wasn't in Fred's World, when I wasn't playing Fred's game, and I was thinking about it myself. Here's my character sheet. My character sheet ended up being my character record book. I mean, it had so many pages. But anyway, I'll just show you what was in my character sheet. We really did have a lot of fun. And Fred was a really nice guy, so I enjoyed spending time with him. I kind of broke his game, though, so he was mad at me. I guess I won't get into it. It was fun, though. I mean, just think about all these spells. Towards the end of the game, before I went on my mission, I served a mission for the LDS Church, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Paris, France, for 2 years. Just before I went on my mission, though, some part of the story, somehow it worked out that I got a hold of a Ring of Wishes, but it was a special kind of Ring of Wishes. It was called a Sphere of Immediate Eventuation. And whatever I could dream up, it would give me. But you got to be careful, because if you worded it all wrong, you're going to die, right? So I wished for a bunch of stuff, and then these are the notes of Fred's on whether or not I would get them. And some of it was really fun, you know. In Fred's campaign, there were 12 levels of magic, not just 9. We had a lot of fun. A friend of mine, when Fred passed, actually he'd been working on it for years before Fred passed as well. He went and he took all of Fred's notes and he gathered them all up, and he made a homepage that you're welcome to go check out. I mean, I don't have any authority over this. This is just one of the sites on the net that you're welcome to go to. But it's got a collection of all the stuff that Fred did, you know, with his game. I don't think you're going to be able to play it like Fred does. I mean, in order to run Fred's world accurately, you have to have Fred's personality. And honestly speaking, there just aren't many people that can do that. Fred was a really unique guy. So, I mean, the information's all there. You're welcome to go check it out. Just realize, I mean, it's an extremely interesting world. But it's weird at the same time. But it's so interesting. I doubt anybody could ever recreate it accurately. You really need Fred's head to do it right. But nonetheless, you're welcome to peruse. It was a lot of fun. Fred was a good guy. I liked him a lot. And I was really sad to hear about him dying. And I just thought he deserved a little bit of glory. And I'm nobody in particular. I'm not at all special at all. So a little, video here on YouTube is not that big of a deal. But it's all the glory I'm capable of giving the guy. So I'm going to give it to him. Anyway, I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.